Hey guys, so I'm finally caught up on all the nightly footage from before, during and after Halloween, and it might surprise you to find out that I didn't actually get any activity whatsoever over Halloween. After what I showed you on last week's video, the house went quiet, and that interests me because Halloween's always been so sort of active, or at least it has since I've been filming this stuff regular. Like, Halloween usually has a lot of activity, and I don't know if that's because I didn't really do any special investigations or anything after the Halloween special. It was just one big investigation, then I just kind of left it. I mean, I was out Halloween, I came back and just went to sleep. Like, there was nothing special going on, and so I didn't really get any activity. And so it's kind of frustrating because I've just spent a week and a half basically going through a bunch of footage that got me nothing more than a few creaks. And the creaks were nothing special. They didn't sound weighty, they didn't sound like footsteps. They were just creaks. I mean, they could have just as easily been the house settling in its foundations. Like, there was nothing special about them, so I'm not willing to put them forward as paranormal activity as of yet. So what I decided I was going to do this week is I wanted to do a little analysis of the two responses that I shared with you last week, the EVP and the Spirit Box response, because there were a few different interpretations throughout the comments. Now, to start with the EVP, I mean, I can understand why people would get a different interpretation, and it's interesting to me because when I first heard it, like, I didn't have to go over and over it to get a translation. I just heard talking to the box. I took it to Shauna, and Shauna heard the same thing without me telling her anything, and so as far as I could see, that's what it said. So I went ahead and I considered this a Class A EVP because we'd both heard the exact same thing without any interpretation on screen to tell us what we're hearing. But that was kind of the point of the experiment, because even though what I considered to be Class A and really clear doesn't necessarily mean that everybody's going to hear the same thing. I think with EVP there is always going to be an element of interpretation, unless it's as clear as me speaking to you right now. Like, it's speaking through white noise, it is manipulating white noise, and so I think there is always going to be that small chance of interpretational differences, and that's pretty much that's pareidolia, which is like the human brain recognizing patterns and kind of picking out recognizable features, and it does it with visual images, like ghost pictures, seeing faces in noise, like the face on Mars is a prime example, and it does the same thing with audio as well, because it's recognizing the beats within words and sentences, and it puts the two together and creates a word. And it's the reason that there is different interpretations of this particular EVP. Even though the EVP itself is legitimate EVP, like, there's no denying it. Like, there is nothing in this room that will create that sound. Like, that is manipulation of the white noise. But it's interesting because there was a lot of people got the same interpretations, and one of which was round and round and round. See, I can hear that, and it makes a lot of sense because, well, the only activity in the room is the chair spinning in a circle, and so if your brain is focused on the fact that this chair is moving, which makes sense, it is the only activity in the room, and then you hear that EVP, that's kind of where the brain goes with it, so you hear round and round and round, because that makes sense at the time. And then you got a couple more people that thought it said, "Get out of my house." Now again, I can hear that, but it's a little bit more random. Like, it doesn't necessarily apply to anything that's going on. But then again, there was no question asked. So, I mean, the spirit's pretty much free game to say whatever they want. If they feel like saying, "Get out of my house," then who am I to say that's not what they said? You know what I mean? And so that's a second interpretation that makes perfect sense when you see it on screen. And then I heard talking to the box. So working on the theory that what you're hearing is kind of partially to do with what your brain is focused on, I'm obviously at this point, I'm reviewing EVP footage. I'm staring at that spirit box, and so when I hear the white noise being manipulated, I hear the words "talking to the box," because that to me makes sense. That is exactly what it's doing. It is speaking into the audio recorder, and maybe it's another spirit telling them this is how you do it, or speaking to someone. I don't know. I don't know which interpretation's correct. Like, there is too much interpretation necessary to come up with a conclusion. Now, there are a lot of popular responses, like "Get out of my house" was a very popular one. Some people thought it might be a combination, like round and round the house, which again makes a little bit of sense because the spirit was kind of all over during the Halloween special, providing this is the same spirit. And so there were just so many that I kind of have to just call this inconclusive. Like, if we had one unanimous interpretation, I could probably go for it, but I can hear them all. Having read your interpretations and going back to it, I can hear them all, and I really don't know which one to go with. And I mean, the interpretations don't really affect anything, so it's not going to hinder communication unless I find out what this EVP said. So I'm pretty happy to just call it inconclusive. And so finally we come to the spirit box response, which I personally interpreted as saying the name James. There were a few people out there that thought it said Jason, and the reason they thought that is because it sounds like there are 2 syllables and not just one. And for me, you've got to take into account that the spirit box is constantly sweeping. So when the name comes out, there is a break in the name as the spirit box sweeps to the next station. If you just look at it on a timeline, you can see the waveform and you can see each individual change in the station. And the name itself comes over 3 different sweeps. The first sweep you don't hear because the name has been said. The second sweep, there is a small break before the last section of the name is spoken. And so if you just take out that middle sweep, that is just white noise, there is no name actually in there, like that is just white noise. If you take that out, you can see that the name itself is actually just 1 syllable and it's only broken up by the sweeping spirit box. Like, I hope that come across as clear as it did in my mind. But that's pretty much it, guys. I mean, I'm not discounting anybody's interpretation of the spirit box itself, but personally I'm going to have to stick to the name James because I've kind of analysed the audio, and that's what I'm happy thinking it is. Obviously, as always, I will try to, you know what I mean, get confirmation of this in another session and find out for sure that it was in fact James and not Jason. I will try both, see which one gets the response, but for now I'm going to have to continue going along with James. So that's pretty much it for this analysis, guys. I hope it was interesting. I hope I maybe showed you some things you maybe didn't know before. Maybe I cleared up some issues, or maybe I just left you with more questions, who knows. But thank you all so much for watching, and as always I'll post any and all activity as and when I get it.